Hello everyone and welcome to an interview with composer Dr. Joshua Bauder. Dr. Bauder is a composer and professor, having received a BA in Music and Philosophy from St. Thomas and a MA and PhD of Composition from U of M. He currently teaches at University of Northwestern, which is where we currently are, St. Thomas and Bethlehem College and Seminary. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, you bet.
This will just be a short 30-minute-ish interview with my composition professor. I've been studying composition here for 4 years now, and I just figured during my last comp lesson I'd ask him some questions. So here we are. Let's get started. We're going to start with a couple questions about kind of your background. So firstly, what is the first piece of music that you ever composed?
I don't know, Jordan. It would have been something I didn't know how to sight read, and I didn't know how to notate music for a long time. So I remember coming up with tunes as a kid, maybe 9 or 10 years old, and not being able to notate them or write them down. I remember not knowing what a half note was, but knowing what a tie was. And so at a certain point, I was writing quarter notes tied together to indicate like a half note. But
That's fun.
I would say around maybe the very beginning of high school, around 9th grade, is when I publicly performed a piece for the first time, and it was received well. Like, people clapped, and it just felt like, okay, this is something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, that may lead into this question. Why did you choose to pursue composition academically?
Yeah, I think I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was swept away with the beauty of music, and I just wanted to figure out, how does this work? And hey, schools offer a degree in this, so why not pursue it as an academic subject? Yeah.
Did you have a favorite teacher or professor as you went through high school and college?
Yeah, high school, yes. I had a great music teacher in high school. Levi Kowinski still is at the high school that I went to school at. It's Fourth Baptist Christian School. Also a great mentor in music, Christy Gottsman, was the handbell director of the handbell choir, and that was my first ensemble playing, was in handbell choir, and so that taught me rhythms and notes probably more than anything else.
Yeah.
So Christy was great. And then did you ask about college as well?
Yeah.
Oh, a ton of influences at University of St. Thomas, and so this would be like Angela Broker was the choral conductor there, and James Callahan was my composition instructor there, and then so many other people too. I feel bad even just not naming people, but my theory instructor and my ear training instructor. I mean, it was just a great experience at St. Thomas in the music department. But if I had to pick two, I would say Callahan for composition. Callahan has passed on. He died last year. Short little man, the Yoda, of the music department, and had already retired at that point, but he came back to teach composition. And then Angie Broker was the choral conductor, and just a huge encouragement to me.
Did you at any point question your choice to get a doctorate in composition?
No, I had to get here's the thing. If you get an undergrad in music, then you're faced with, okay, what's my life going to look like? What's the next choice? And for me, the next choice was more school, academia, because I wanted to teach.
Okay.
And I knew leaving undergrad, I'm like, okay, if I want to teach, now I got to play the game, and you need a PhD. I didn't want to teach elementary or high school.
Right.
So I knew I wanted to operate at the college level. Well, at that point, you have to get a PhD. You just have to. It's the part of the game.
Yeah.
And then before you get a PhD, you have to get a master's. And so that kind of guided all of my choices after that point. Yeah.
Interesting. We're going to move on to composition now. So what part of your compositional process do you most enjoy?
I like improvising. I like the beginning of the process. Improvising, I think I write at the piano. I improvise at the piano, and that's where I put together tunes. So I think tune construction is fun. I like the editing process once the music's been written, and now it's just time to like click and drag. I like that because I can watch something in the background.
Nice.
Do you want to hear what I don't like?
Yeah, that's actually my next question. Is
everything else, everything in between, like making a piece, putting a piece into its final form is so stressful. And the larger the piece, the more stress for me.
Yeah.
So it's like I like the small scale melody construction and stuff. The toughest part for me is the big issues of like creating an overall shape for a piece and making sure that it is aesthetically like it's where I want it to be and I feel confident about it. That takes a lot of work, a lot of craft, and it requires like my full attention, but it also, my full attention maxes out after about 20 minutes of hard thinking, so
Right.
It's like you can only focus on it for so long before for me before I have to move on.
What type of ensemble do you most enjoy composing for? Like orchestral or small chamber or maybe choir, solo voice?
I think that I enjoy rotating. I think I would get too... I think I'd get sick of things if I just did the same ensemble over and over again. So I like the rotation. That's not a cop-out, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah,
it's like I need the variety. So like right now I'm working on a big choral orchestral piece, and as soon as that's done, I'm going to do something small because I'll just be burnt out with the big stuff.
Yep.
So I think with enough variety, I'm open to anything. I do love writing for keyboard and choir. Piano and choral music is, I guess, is kind of my bread and butter. I love writing for strings.
Yeah.
But yeah, variety is nice.
Yeah.
As with anything in life, you do something for a while, then just switch it up and vary it a little bit.
Do you seek to incorporate Christian ideas into your instrumental music, and if so, how?
Well, you tell me, Joe, how would one go about incorporating Christian ideas in instrumental music? Let's just riff on that.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is like using triplets to just like
to be the
shorthand for Trinity.
Sure, yeah.
Things like that.
Everything's in E flat major.
Yep.
3 flats in 3/4 time with triplets.
Yep. Things like that.
No, I don't think I encode in that way. Like Bach does that. The St. Anne Fugue is pretty famous for having 3 sections, and then they're all kind of references to some kind of triple meter. And it's in E flat, and it's kind of a setting of "Oh God, Our Help in Ages Past," which is the St. Anne tune. So I mean, and Bach was all about that kind of coding things or putting in references to a cross or his own name or he liked codes. I don't do a lot of that. I would say I'm interested in the music that I write that doesn't have words needs to be consonant with a Christian worldview, a Christian imagination, and that's opening a huge can of worms, because by saying that I want it to be that, I'm also implying that it's possible for instrumental music to be, to not adhere or be consonant with a Christian worldview, and that's shaky ground. That's a tough issue. But yeah, I would say, but I don't know if there's a way to express explicitly Christian ideas unless, maybe there's a sense in which tonality itself is an acknowledgement and affirmation of a moral universe governed by God.
Right.
In which case, every 5-to-1 cadence is a victory over the. Arvo Pärt's piece Credo, which we've gone over this in class. I think probably in a couple different classes that you've been in. Arvo Pärt explores what it would be like to follow the 12-tone system to its kind of logical conclusion, and it leads to hell. Do you remember this piece a little bit?
I think so.
The one that just like the middle section it just devolves more and more until you have just utter chaos. It's terrifying in the middle.
Yeah. And
then he gets out, he builds his way back out of it. And the whole thing is based on Bach as well, the first prelude, the C major prelude, the famous prelude. And by the time you get to the end of that piece and there's like a 5-to-1 cadence after your time in 12-tone hell, it's like, it just feels like this was a spiritual victory. So, I don't know, maybe there's a sense in which the tonal system, tonality, is a kind of implicit acknowledgement of a moral order to the universe. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
You've often collaborated with Jonathan Landry Cruse.
Yeah.
What does that process usually look like for you guys?
I was just texting him today because there was a new pope elected today. And
oh, right.
When I texted Jonathan that there was white smoke, he said, well, did they pick you? And anyway, yeah, Jonathan is a Presbyterian pastor. He's about my age, a little bit younger than me. and a fantastic poet, Christian poet, hymn writer. I mean, I think most of his, maybe all of his poetry is hymnody, or, you know, it sticks to that form, could be used as a hymn. And so, yeah, we've collaborated on maybe a dozen hymns where he'll write the text and then I'll set it to music, and it's been great. Yeah. What do you want to know about it?
I was just curious, like, is it usually text first and then you set it to music and then you kind of edit it together?
Yes, that's the goal, is that text first, rather than start. I think there might be one case where he heard a tune and he's like, oh, I'll write something for that tune. And there was one other case where he wrote a text, I wrote some music, but then I kind of was like, man, I really want to have this rhythm, so could you rewrite your whole text to like fit the rhythm? And he did it. So there is a little bit of give and take there. But the ideal situation, though, is to start with the text, and then I come along and set it to music. And yeah, with Jonathan, there's quite a bit of back and forth. There will be some words that, you know, that either he doesn't like already, and he's like, hey, what do you think about the words here? Or maybe something I want to change with the words. And then there's always a lot that he wants to change with the music. And that's, we really have to haggle. Because there's things that I'm like, I don't want to change that. And he's like, well, it's dumb. So, you know, he's a great friend, and it's the kind of thing where we can give that, we can have that back and forth, and it's fine. Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you written any song texts?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, here and there. I mean, so for this piece, the big piece that I'm working on now, which is a piece about John Newton, the slave trader turned Christian minister who wrote Amazing Grace later on in his life, I'm writing a lot of the text of that piece just to move the story along. So I'm taking letters or sermons or things that were not poetic, and I'm kind of modifying them, squashing them into, I'm versifying some things in order just to let the story move faster. I've written some texts for use in congregational services. So, yeah.
Very cool. Knowing you typically compose for acoustic instruments, do you think you'll ever venture into electronic music?
What is electronic music?
I would define it as music primarily composed within like a DAW or a synth rather than on sheet music.
Yeah, I would be open to that. And performed also, not performed by human beings, but just played back as
typically just played back, yeah.
I'd be open to it. It's not my wheelhouse. I'd be open to it. There might even be some of that stuff, like in this John Newton piece, as just kind of an ambient background. So, yeah, possibly. Yeah. Do you think I should?
I think it'd be kind of fun to see what you come up with. Yeah. Do you have a favorite piece of music, just of all time?
Yeah, it moves around a little bit. Elgar's Nimrod has always been, that was one of the pieces I listened to in like high school, and I'm like, this, I want to figure, I don't understand what's going on here. All I know is it's beautiful, and I want to figure out what's going on with this. So Elgar's Nimrod, Brahms, the famous intermezzo, number 2 in A major, the piano solo. Some Arvo Pärt, like the Vater Unser, his setting of the Lord's Prayer. These are all kind of top. Barber's Adagio for strings.
Nice.
What are your top 3? If you had to, someone asked you that question.
Definitely one of my tops would be Jupiter from Pulse of the Planets. Oh, I also really love the Stravinsky's Firebird Suite.
Yeah.
I love the ending of that.
The ending is fantastic. Yeah.
Beyond those are kind of my top 2. Maybe Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, the orchestral version of that, I really adore.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite composer?
Well, Gerald Finzi's Eclogue would be up there too with those favorite pieces. Yeah. Probably some mix of Elgar and Brahms and Pärt, and if you just kind of mashed all those guys together, the monstrosity that would result would be my favorite composer.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm a late romantic guy, so that's my favorite. In terms of just sitting down at a piano and playing something, I love to have some like intermediate level Bach. So like the English suites, the French suites, well-tempered clavier parts of it, but like Goldberg's too difficult for me. It's not fun anymore to try to sight read, but I like to read Bach if it's easy enough for me to grapple with.
Yeah. Do you have a guilty pleasure piece of music? Something that you enjoy, but you don't really want to admit that you do?
Something that I enjoy, but I don't want to admit that I enjoy it. I went through, let's see. I went through a very brief Coldplay phase.
Oh.
Where I really liked Fix You.
Yep.
The one with this Viva
Viva La Vida?
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
The Scientist, just songs. Around the same time, it's okay. I'll let that pass. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I also really like Coldplay, especially their first album, Parachutes. I really love that album.
Is that what those songs are from?
I think those ones are from like the second and third albums, but like Yellow. Do you know Yellow? That one's from the first album. Sparks. And there's one other one that I really love from that. I'm not sure.
My pop music consumption is piecemeal. Like I don't think I've ever sat down and listened, with a couple exceptions, like a Springsteen album once. But I don't think I really sit down and listen through albums of stuff. I'll just hear a song here or there, usually through a friend, and be like, oh, I like that piece. Let me listen to that 20 times in a row.
Yeah. Final question for the composition section. What is your favorite piece that you've composed?
I have a setting of the Lord's Prayer that I really like. I like my setting of God Moves in a Mysterious Way from my oratorio Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like some of my melodies here and there. Yeah. I'm still waiting for like that piece that I just feel like this... I don't need to compose anything more after this one. This summed it up. Some of the ones I've done with Jonathan have been close, I think. Yeah. Just like, wow, that works really well. So, no, I'm still looking for... What God Ordains is probably my most well-known choral octave or anthem. What God Ordains is always good. So that one, I did pretty well with that. But I'm still looking for that golden melody. You know, we all are. Right? That's our quest.
All right, moving on to teaching.
Okay.
What is your favorite course that you've taught, either in terms of content or because of the students?
Yeah, okay. At Northwestern?
Sure.
Okay, all right. It would be a tie between Theory 4, which I love Theory 4. Theory 4 is where we deal with the 20th century. We deal with modernism, impressionism, expressionism, the problem of kitsch, and then postmodern responses to all that, and then minimalism, which is a response kind of to that. Minimalism is part of postmodernism. And the fragmentation that we have, and it's like, well, where are we right now in our musical world? And there's no clear answers there at the end of the course, but it's just really fun to teach.
Yeah.
And then it would be a tie between Theory 4 and Theology Worship.
Oh, yeah. I wish that one could have been a semester long, because as it is, just a quad, it feels like we're rushing through everything.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
But that was a really great class. Is there a specific subject within any of the courses you've taught that you especially enjoy?
I like to teach about minimalism, both kind of the American secular minimalism and holy minimalism, which would be Parrott, Tavener, Goretzky, maybe James McMillan, that kind of crowd. I like to teach John Cage. That's one of my favorite days in Theory 4 is the John Cage day.
Interesting.
I don't agree with almost anything that he says, but he's so gentle with his presentation of his music philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to listen to him talk, and he has a great presence in interviews. He's very gracious. He understands that it's kind of him versus the world. There's very few people that would be all in with John Cage, and he understands that, and he's okay with it. And he has a sense of humor, and that really helps.
Yeah.
So I enjoy Cage.
Is there a course or subject that you haven't taught yet, but you would like to at some point?
I've taught music history, the second of the music history courses, one time, and I was not able to teach it again just because it would put me over the credits that I'm allowed to teach. I would love to teach that again, and I'd love to get into music history 1.
Nice. Yeah. You often tie in philosophy and theology into your music classes. Is that something that just comes up naturally as you explore topics, or is it something you're intentionally trying to eject into your teaching?
It's probably both. I'm a big picture guy, and to me, that's just the kind of thing that interests me. Because I guess it's because I'm operating from presupposition that musical expression is not neutral, it's not in a void, it's always occurring within the context of a culture. And so what I hope that some of those interjections will help tie together an understanding of the music with what it's doing culturally.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. One final question for teaching. How do you approach teaching students who each learn best in a variety of different ways?
So like some are visual learners, some are...
Right, yeah. Some love lecturing, some love like doing things, some, yeah.
I don't think about it a lot. I don't worry about that. I think that's something for a high school teacher and an elementary teacher to really stress about. And I think by the time you're in college, this is kind of a cop-out. By the time you're teaching college, I mean, the difference between high school and college. High school is a teaching environment. College should be a learning environment. So yeah, I have my responsibility in class to lecture and to provide examples and to show things and to nudge people in certain directions. But there's also, I think students by that point have figured out their own style and it's on them to learn. So there's a little bit more responsibility on the part of the student that's my cop-out. See, I'm just trying to avoid answering the question. I think I'm a visual learner, and so I do enjoy trying to have some kind of visual reinforcement, whether it be a score, audio, paintings, or just some kind of visual for most of my classes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so our final two questions. One, do you have any advice for someone who is considering becoming a composer?
Well, advice for someone who wants to become a composer. I would want to understand more about what that even means. Like, are they not yet composing, but they're attracted to the idea of being a composer?
Sure.
Because at that point, then I would say, just write something and see if you enjoy it. I don't think it's the kind of thing where you can want to be it. It's like you either kind of do it already and kind of enjoy it, even if it's at a very low level, or you don't. But if you don't already have if you're not already thinking of tunes and enjoying the process of inventing tunes in your mind, then don't push it on yourself. I've had students that I think just are in love with the idea of being a composer, kind of the mystique of the composer. But then the actual nitty-gritty of composing something is really like tortuous for them. It's like, well, don't push it, But if you're like, yeah, I love music, I love creating tunes, and maybe you just don't have the skills yet to write it down, well then I guess my advice would be invest in the craft of it. And so you're going to need both general competency in music, which would be things like sight reading, or even just at a basic level, or being able to recognize orally musical features and note and write them down, or at least know what they are. Identifying intervals and chords and qualities, all that is super crucial for developing a quick and efficient ear as a composer. So general competency, and then invest in the craft of like, here's how to write a melody, here's the different forms of melodies, here's how a chord progression works. Here are the basic forms, bar form or ternary form or sonata form. Not that you have to be then bound by any of those things, but at least they will give you a starting point from which you can break out and expand and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and the final question is, would you rather be remembered as a great composer or as a great teacher? Ideally both, but if you had to choose.
Yeah, would I rather be remembered as a great... I don't care if I would like my music to survive. It's after me. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. But I guess what I would say is between the two, the more important one is probably being a good teacher. Let's say, if I'm teaching at a Christian university in the arts, that's probably the more that probably represents the more direct good that I can do. So I guess that even is where I have put more effort and emphasis in my life is on the teaching side. Partly because it pays the bills, but partly because it is a more direct. I think it's doing more good more directly than composing.
Interesting.
That's the best I can answer.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a blast.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for all the things that you've taught me over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And Soli Deo Gloria.
Yeah.